Yo, what's going on, yo? I'm JB Hoops, and today I'm going to be making my standing predictions for the upcoming season. There's not going to be a ton of thought put into these. I'm pretty much just going off vibes, what I think about how their team fits together, and their off-season additions and subtractions. So I'm not taking this too seriously, so let's just get right into it, starting off with the Eastern Conference. I'm going to have the Milwaukee Bucks as my number 1 seed. They added Dame, which is obviously huge. They got a new coach, which I think will be beneficial for them. And just having Giannis and Dame is going to be unstoppable. Yes, their defense, especially on the perimeter, might be a bit shaky and their depth is a little sus. But I think with a few buyout guys or a trade or two, they could definitely help to fix those problems. But right now, overall, I think the Milwaukee Bucks are one of the best teams in the league. So I'm putting them as my preseason number 1 seed. I'm going to give the Boston Celtics the 2nd seed. The Celtics obviously added Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. They did lose Marcus Smart and Robert Williams, but Kristaps just came off a great season with the Wizards. It'll be all about health with him, and I think Drew will be great for their defense and leadership. The Celtics will probably cruise through the regular season. Tatum's going to be an MVP candidate, and I'm going to give the Celtics the 2nd seed. Now onto the 3rd seed, I'm going with the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs made some nice additions around the edges with Max Strus and George Niang. They also got Tristan Thompson back, which was cool, but I think most of their growth will come from the guys they already had. Having guys like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland continue to develop, Donovan Mitchell's going to continue to be great, and Jarrett Allen is a stud, so I'm giving the Cavs the 3rd seed. Next up, I'm going to go with the Sixers here. I'm really not too sure what to think of the Sixers. They have the reigning MVP of the league, one of the better young players in the league in Tyrese Maxey. DeAnthony Melton is nice. I think Jaden Springer could take a leap. And overall, I really like their offseason. The James Harden trade will ultimately determine how they're going to be this year, so we'll kind of just have to wait and see, but regardless, the Sixers are going to be good, so I have them as my 4th seed. I'm going with the Knicks as my 5th seed. The Knicks pretty much ran it back. They added Dante DiVincenzo, who's a nice piece, but they've got all their same key guys and should continue to develop. I don't think they're in the tier of true contenders. They probably need that superstar trade, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But overall, the Knicks have a really solid offense and defense, so I have them as the 5th seed. Now onto the last guaranteed playoff spot, I'm going with the Miami Heat. The Heat obviously didn't get Dame, which was a huge blow. They also lost Max Strus and Gabe Vincent for nothing. They had a few solid pickups in free agency. I wasn't a huge fan of their draft either, so overall I don't think the Miami Heat had a great offseason. But they're still super well coached, have a superstar in Jimmy Butler and a star in Bam Adebayo. And Tyler Hero is still there, of course, and whilst I'm not sure he'll stay on the team, he's still a very solid player. So I have the Heat coming in as the 6th seed. Now onto the play-in race. With the 7th seed, I'm going with a bit of a surprise in the Brooklyn Nets. I think in the East, the Nets probably have the broadest range of every team. I could see them being as high as the 4th or 5th seed and as low as maybe the 14th seed. In my opinion, how good the Nets will be will really hinge on Ben Simmons. They've got Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Dinwiddie and Claxton, as well as some really nice bench pieces. But if Ben Simmons is back to his peak self, they're definitely going to be a playoff caliber team. I think their defense is going to be outstanding regardless. I don't think Mikal's a first option type player, so they're not really a contender in my eyes. But anyway, I think they'll be a really solid team, so I have the Nets as my 7th seed. With the 8th seed, I'm going with the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks traded John Collins for practically nothing. I do really like their young core and think some of their guys can take some leaps. But overall, they're probably just not as talented as in years past. I also think they'll probably look to move Capella and maybe DeAndre Hunter as well. And I really wouldn't mind if they kind of took a year to reset and rebuild around Trae Young. I definitely think they could make the playoffs, but I don't really see them making much noise. So for now, I'm going to have the Atlanta Hawks as my 8th seed in the East. I have the Indiana Pacers coming in as my 9th seed. The Pacers stole Bruce Brown from the Denver Nuggets, added Jarris Walker in the draft, and have a super talented young core. They also got Obi Toppin from the Knicks, and he could be a breakout candidate. So overall, I think the Pacers are going to be a lot more competitive. If Tyrese Halliburton stays healthy for the entire season, I definitely think they could make the playoffs, but I do think they'll need him to play at that all-star level. It might be a year or two until the Pacers are a consistent playoff team, but I'd be shocked if they didn't put up a fight in the play-in race this year. Now with the final play-in spot, I have the Orlando Magic sneaking in for the 10th seed. The Magic obviously have Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Wendell Carter Jr., Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs are all impact players. And I think Anthony Black could be a solid versatile rookie as well. And they also have some nice veterans like Joe Ingles and Gary Harris. So the Magic definitely got better this offseason. And with internal growth from Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero into all-star type players, I think the Magic have a great shot at making the play-in. Now onto the 11th seed, I'm going with the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls are kind of in an awkward spot. Obviously Lonzo is out for the season, the young core is kind of lackluster. Although I do like Patrick Williams and Kobe White, although they will need them to step it up. But overall, they're just not really talented enough to be super competitive. They could definitely sneak into the play-in, maybe even the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Bulls end up selling their top guys. And honestly, I do expect them to do that. But they still have a solid team, so I'm going with the Bulls as the 11th seed. I'm going with the Toronto Raptors for the 12th seed. The Raptors lost Fred VanVleet. They did add Dennis Schroeder. Scotty Barnes looked really good in the preseason, but I still think they need to continue to rebuild, especially if Scotty's going to look this good. I don't think Siakam is the right guy next to him. He is a bit older as well, and they could get some pretty good value for him. If they do keep all their guys, they will probably be in the play-in, but right now I'm kind of expecting them to trade Siakam, so I'm going to have the Raptors as my 12th seed. 13th seed, we're kind of onto their more rebuilding teams. I'm definitely thinking either Charlotte or Detroit here. The Pistons have a nice young core, especially defensively. Asar Thompson's going to be impactful. Jalen Duren's a monster. I'm really high on Jaden Ivey, but I think ultimately it all comes down to Cade Cunningham. He has missed a lot of time with injury, so I'm not sure this is going to be the year where he takes that star leap. But they did pay a lot of money for Monty Williams, so I could definitely see the Pistons being good, especially if a few other teams in the play-in race underperform. So I'm going to go with the Pistons as my 13th seed. Next up at 14, I'm going with Charlotte. The Hornets have some solid pieces. Obviously, Miles Bridges probably won't play. They obviously lost Kai Jones as well. Overall, the Hornets definitely have their issues. I think Brandon Miller will need to shoot it really well to be a positive rookie, which I don't really expect him to be, as very few rookies are positives. LaMelo could take another leap, but ultimately I think the Hornets will need another year or two before they're back in the playoffs. If all goes to plan for them, they definitely could be in the play-in again, but for now I'm going with the Hornets as my 14th seed in the East. Now as the 15th seed, obviously I'm going with the Washington Wizards. They finally blew it up and brought in Jordan Poole. I think he might average about 30 points per game this season. He's going to get his shots up. Kuzma's going to get his shots up. Koulibaly's looks very intriguing, especially on the defensive end. And they also have some very solid veteran bench players. And I almost forgot they got Tyus Jones as well, and he'll definitely help them a ton. But overall, I just don't really think they have the talent or experience. I think they also might ship off a few of their older guys, especially Kuzma. He'll have a fair bit of value. But yeah, in this prediction video, the Wizards will be my 15th seed in the East. Alright, so that is my Eastern Conference standing predictions. There's definitely ranges for pretty much all of these teams. I do think the top 3 are pretty safe playoff locks, and Philly are probably there as well. But overall, it's going to be very competitive, and I'm really excited. But now moving on to the Western Conference, I'm going to go with the Phoenix Suns for my 1 seed. The Suns obviously added Bradley Beal and are going to have one of the best offenses in NBA history. I'm just not really sure how you can stop 3 guys who can put the ball on the floor and score at all 3 levels. The rim pressure and defense scare me a little bit, but I am a huge fan of all the additions they made in the offseason. The Suns have heaps of guys who can play a role. They've got a nice rotation of bigs and versatile wings. They might need to make another trade or two to address the center spot, as over the last few years Nurkic hasn't been super reliable, but overall I think the Suns will be a force in the West and should probably win close to 60 games. Next up, I'm going with the Lakers. I think the Lakers had a phenomenal offseason. They got Gabe Vincent, Taurean Prince. I think Christian Wood can work with AD. And Jackson Hayes and Cam Reddish are fun pickups. LeBron looks back and healthy, and that'll be huge for them. And AD is top 5 in the world when he's at his best. So I really think the Lakers can be great, and I'm going with them as my 2nd seed. Now with the 3rd seed, I'm going with the reigning champions, the Denver Nuggets. This might look a little low, and they are definitely one of the contenders again this year. But I just think they'll coast through the regular season, get their wins, maybe manage Jokic and Jamal Murray's workload. And I also don't think they have great depth, especially in comparison to last year. Losing Bruce Brown is big. I wasn't really a fan of their free agent signings. They're going to have to get solid minutes out of rookies and young guys. So at times I think it could be a struggle with them, but with Jokic they're definitely capable of winning everything. But in this video I'm going to predict the Nuggets get the 3 seed in the West. My 4th seed in the West is a bit of a surprise. I'm going with the OKC Thunder. The Thunder were already super competitive last year, and that was without their number 2 pick Chet Holmgren. who's from the jump going to be one of the best defensive bigs in the league. They also added Cason Wallace and Mitchich. They're going to have a great defense. J-Dub's going to take a leap. Giddy should be better this season. And Chet is going to be super impactful as a rookie. They're also really well coached. So I think the OKC Thunder can definitely just straight up make the playoffs. And they're definitely going to shock some people this year. My 5th seed is going to be the Clippers. It looks like they'll probably get Harden and that'll be huge for them. PG and Kawhi are still one of the best duos in the league, and adding Harden to that would be crazy. They've got some older bench pieces, but I did like the Kenyon Martin Jr. pickup. Obviously with the Clippers, it'll come down to health and how many games their guys are able to play. But you've just got to acknowledge the talent they have, so I'm going with the Clippers as my 5th seed. Now with the 6th seed, I'm going with a bit of a surprise with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think adding Cat back for an entire season will be huge for them. Anthony Edwards looks to have taken a leap. I think Jaden McDaniels will be a lot better this year as well. Gobert should have a bounce back year. Their bench is solid. And overall, 4 through about 11 will be a bloodbath in the West. So it's really just a matter of who I'm liking more at the moment. Right now, I'm going with the Timberwolves as my 6th seed. With the 7th seed, I'm going with the Memphis Grizzlies. Obviously, they're going to be without Ja for the first 25 games of the season. Brandon Clark's going to miss a while with injury, and we just found out Steven Adams is going to miss the entire season. So I think they will have games they'll really struggle in early on. But Marcus Smart's going to be huge for them without Ja. And when he comes back, I also really like that fit as someone who can run the second unit and really help them out on the defensive end. I like the Grizzlies' young guys. I think Zaire Williams is ready to take a leap. I could see them trading for maybe a Clint Capella type. Just someone to fill that hole at the 5 spot. I think there will be a lot of pressure on Jaren Jackson Jr. to perform, but he's ready for that. He's a top 25 player in the league, a depoy. So I can for sure see the Grizzlies as high as the 3 or 4 seed, but for now I'm going with them as my 7th seed in the West. Onto the 8th seed, I'm going with the Golden State Warriors. This might come back to bite me, as you can never doubt Steph Curry, but I just really wasn't huge on what they did this offseason. I do really like Chris Paul. I think he can still bring some value. But I think between him, Steph, Clay, and Wiggins, they're probably going to miss a few games. And outside of Steph, I'm just really not sure where offense comes from consistently. Hopefully Clay's better this year. The Warriors are really going to need it. But for now, with how competitive the West is, I'm going to have the Warriors as my 8th seed. Just below them as my 9th seed, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans will obviously have Zion Williamson back, and that is going to be absolutely huge for them. If he's able to play the majority of their games, they could definitely be as high as the 3, 4, 5 seed. But outside of him, they didn't really do much this offseason. Valanciunas is fine, CJ McCollum is okay. Maybe he has a bounce back here and can really elevate them. Brandon Ingram is really good, but he just can't do it all himself. I do like their young guys. Trey Murphy could be great, and Dyson Daniels I think can take a leap this year. But for me, the Pelicans' success definitely lies with Zion. So we'll see how it goes, but for now, I'm going to have them as my 9th seed. Now this 10th spot is obviously very difficult. In my opinion, 4 through 11 in the West is going to be super tight. But for now, with the 10th spot, I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavs obviously have Luka and Kyrie as their top 2. Luka's probably going to miss some time to start the season, so that might hurt him. I do like the additions they made in the offseason. I think Derek Lively should be a starting caliber center, especially defensively from the get-go. I love Jaden Hardy. Seth Curry's a great shooter. Josh Green should be that starter, and Grant Williams is a nice pickup as well. If Kyrie or Luka miss an extended period of time, they could definitely end up missing the play-in. But for now, because they have 2 of the most offensively talented players in the league, I'm going to have the Dallas Mavericks as my 10th seed. So unfortunately, that means I have the Kings missing the play-in entirely. This would be pretty shocking and devastating for Kings fans. I'm pretty sure they were the 3rd seed last year. Their offense was incredible. Defensively, they have a lot of areas they'll need to improve. I just wasn't a huge fan of their offseason. I think they probably should have gone after an OG Anunoby or even Dylan Brooks. I think their defense will probably be pretty rough again. Keegan Murray might take that leap to be their second guy. But overall, their defense does really concern me, and they were very lucky with their health they had last season. But pretty much any team from 4 through 11 could end up missing the play-in entirely. Unfortunately, in this video, it ended up being the Kings. Don't roast me, I wish I could put him in as well, but it is what it is. Next up is the 12th seed, I'm going with the Portland Trail Blazers. I think the Blazers might surprise a few people this year. Anthony Simons is a hooper, Scoot is amazing, DeAndre Ayton is a great fit at the 5, and I think Jeremy Grant is a very solid player, although he is very overpaid. Scoot, I'm not too sure what to expect. He could be a positive, but he could be very rough at the same time. I don't really expect too much from them, other than that they'll be a fun team to watch. Obviously, Shaedon Sharpe's cool as well. But yeah, anyway, I have the Blazers as my 12th seed. Now as my 13th seed, I have the Houston Rockets. I could definitely put them as a 12th seed here, and they might even end up sneaking into the play-in if some other teams have some injuries. Overall, I think Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks were solid additions. I love Amen Thompson, but he might take a few years to be a really great player. And whilst I think a few of their guys might take some pretty big leaps, I'm just not sure they'll stack up against some of the other teams in the Western Conference. So in this video, I have the Houston Rockets as my 13th seed in the West. Now with the 14th seed, I'm going with the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, they have Wemby, who's a freak. I think he's going to have a historic rookie season. He could be an all-star, even all-NBA. And overall, the Spurs just have guys. Devin Vassell earned that big contract extension. Keldon Johnson is nice. Zach Collins also just got extended, and he's a very solid big man. And then Trey Jones and Jeremy Sohan are there as well. I think it might take a year or two before we see them in the playoffs, but I'm 1000% confident the Spurs will be a very fun team to watch. Now that obviously means my 15th seed is the Utah Jazz. This is kind of crazy to me. I think the Jazz have a pretty good team. Lauri Markkanen's an all-star. Kessler's one of the best defensive bigs in the game already. Colin Sexton's a guy I would be looking to trade for if I was another team. Jordan Clarkson can still get you buckets, and I really love their draft. Again, I could definitely see them being as high as maybe the 12th or 11th seed, maybe even sneaking into the play-in. But the Western Conference is just going to be so competitive, so it's really hard to say. But as of now, this is going to be my preseason standing predictions. But anyway, leave a like on the video and comment your thoughts down below. Subscribe for more, I really appreciate it. I've got more content coming soon, so stay tuned. I'm going to have some 2024 draft stuff coming out in the next week or two. I'm just really excited for basketball coming back. And anyway, that's all I got. Jebby Hoops out.